Are you planning to renovate your kitchen and looking for decoration tips, functional advice, execution tips, and renovation ideas? Even so, pay attention because you're watching the right video. Grab a pen and paper because I'm going to tell you everything right now in this video. 15 items, 15 tips, ideas that you will implement in your kitchen renovation. So you can have a functional kitchen, a beautiful, up-to-date, and modern kitchen. Hey guys, how are you doing? All good, I'm Ed Parquetato, and in this video, this content is to help you not make mistakes in your kitchen decor. Don't do any kind of service, work, or execution that you'll regret later. It's true that this is very important too. Some of these points here, you'll totally agree with me. So take notes, grab paper and pen, rewind the video here because I'm sure this will help you. If you're renovating your kitchen, if you're building, if you want to, for example, give your kitchen an upgrade, these 15 simple ideas that I'm going to share with you right now will help you a lot. First tip, guys, have a backsplash made of the same material as your countertop. Imagine that you have your countertop in a white granite, that white stellar, a white quartz, and so on. Instead of having a small backsplash and a wall covering, you extend the same backsplash made of your sink's material. So look how interesting this is here. And actually, if you do the math, it's even affordable. It's actually a good cost benefit. Why do we use the full backsplash on that countertop? There? Imagine that you're going to have a white stellar granite or a white stellar quartz on your sink countertop anyway. Let's talk about the material itself, but let's also talk about the style, the design you're going to have for your backsplash. Then you bring your countertop, your beautiful stone, nice. And then instead of just having that little backsplash of 10 or 12 centimeters, you raise the entire backsplash with the same material as the stone, so you'll have your stone and you'll extend the backsplash right there. Aesthetically, it looks better. You won't have that raised detail there, that little notch from the backsplash, okay? Aesthetically, it's nicer. It gives your kitchen countertop a more impressive look. Another thing that's also interesting for you to consider carefully and see if it's really going to look good or not, it depends on the material. There are materials where the square meter of these countertops is very expensive, so it's actually worth it to make a backsplash. Now, if you're going to use an average price, there's a base price here for more common materials like granite, for example, or quartz. Compared to buying a porcelain tile, the mortar, the grout, and the labor for the porcelain tile installer. And then when you bring this into the marble shop's budget, you'll see that it all comes out about the same. Let's put it this way, the same budget you would spend to make your sink wall in porcelain tile is the same amount you would invest in having it. Instead of a small backsplash, a full backsplash on your countertop, there on your sink, between the countertop and the upper cabinet, since we usually have an upper cabinet there. So the first option here, the first tip I want to give you is, instead of using a short backsplash, let's try to use a full backsplash there, which aesthetically will look better. And suddenly, it might cost the same as you would spend to put the porcelain tile. Second item here, second tip I want to bring to you is to leave the correct space in your baseboard. Imagine that when you're washing dishes or preparing some food, the tip of your foot keeps hitting that baseboard. So that can't happen. You need to leave enough space for everyday use. This tip here is a functional tip, okay? You'll notice this difference in your daily life. Using your kitchen, making food, washing dishes, whatever it is, you're there. Leaning against the countertop, your sink. And the baseboard, some people call it a counter base. I like to call it a baseboard. It's not deep. It doesn't have an ideal depth between the end of your furniture and its beginning. Okay, this baseboard is usually made of masonry. And then on its front, some people, some decorators, like to use the same material as the stone. I personally prefer to use the same material as the floor. So if you're using porcelain tile there, you make the baseboard with the same material as the floor and the porcelain tile. I think it looks better aesthetically, but it needs to have some depth. You can't finish the baseboard flush, level with your furniture. Because when you get close to wash your dishes or prepare some food, the tip of your shoe, your foot will keep hitting there. And that's going to bother you. It might even cause pain in your kitchen. So is this a tip, even ergonomically speaking, for the health of your spine? So you need to leave a certain depth measurement there in your baseboard, right? Like what would be the ideal measurement for that? What I use in my projects is 10 centimeters of depth. When the furniture ends here, I set the baseboard back by 10 centimeters. No problem, even if your foot is about size 48 or 50, you still won't hit the tip of your shoe there. So, baseboard, this is an execution tip for when you're doing the project. When you're making the baseboard for your countertop, pay attention to this, because it will work really well for your daily life. There in your kitchen, a recessed handle in the door itself, in your own cabinetry, whether it's on your cabinet doors, your drawers, or your overhead furniture, like your cupboard, right? Using a recessed handle. Have you seen that recessed handle? Kind of at a 45-degree angle in the door itself. When you go to pull it, we don't have a handle. For example, in aluminum solid running all the way across the door, that's something I don't really like aesthetically. It's not like I'm going to tell you to remove it or anything like that. If you have it, there's no problem, okay? Now, in a new project where you hired me to execute and design your project, I would recommend you use a recessed handle built right into the door or the drawer itself. Aesthetically, for cabinetry, imagine you chose a beautiful cabinet, a nice cool color, and then you go and cover it with handles. Then, whether you like it or not, there will be a break in the aesthetics of your cabinetry's decor. So, the recessed handle directly on the door or drawer is a tip I bring to you, very functional and also aesthetically pleasing. There are also other models of recessed handles. Suddenly, you set the cabinet, the overhead kitchen cabinet, back a little and let the door stick out a bit, then you pull it, like that. It's another style of handle too, but this recessed handle is really cool. If you do the math, what would you invest in a handle model that you liked? With this model here, it might end up costing about the same as well. So, that's another tip I want to share with you. Use the recessed handle built into the carpentry itself on your door or drawer, instead of especially installing a separate recessed handle. I'm going to run this all the way across LED in the cabinet. This one is really cheap. Alright guys, it's not going to increase your cost or your budget in your carpentry project. Even if you already have the carpentry done and want to put this LED in your cabinet, there, below your overhead cabinet, it looks really nice and it's another lighting option. If you're renovating and you've hired carpenters to make the custom furniture for your kitchen, don't forget to tell the people who are going to do the carpentry for you that you want a little LED light under your overhead cabinet to light up exactly that wall above your sink countertop. Imagine that our first item here was the solid backsplash. We have the countertop material and it goes up there. There's no backsplash. And then you have a LED light in that cabinet above, which will bathe your cabinet in light. It looks really beautiful. There's a small LED and adding it to the project is free. If you ask the cabinet maker, they might install it or even include it as a bonus. If you close the whole project with the cabinet maker, it's really cool. It looks really beautiful. It's another lighting option for you if you really like to spend time in the kitchen, make different kinds of food, and enjoy cooking. This is a type of lighting that you'll use a lot in your daily life. So really think about having this little LED. Like I already have my cabinet here. How do I get this little LED here? I'll leave the link for this LED strip in the description for you, which you can plug directly into the outlet. Okay, it doesn't need a power supply. You just plug it straight into the outlet, if you happen to have an outlet nearby. Right there, even inside the cabinet where it's hidden, you can run the little LED strip. It's attached with double-sided tape. Just stick it on and plug it in directly. And you have this option to have lighting on that wall, right below your furniture, lighting up your countertop, and to have a wet area that's a bit larger than usual, larger than the conventional one. This really makes our daily use a lot easier. Using the countertop, washing dishes, washing food, and placing the dish rack there is also very interesting. Obviously, this tip I'm giving you here about having a wet area on your sink countertop is for those who have a large sink, a large countertop. If you have a small space on your sink, you'll have to work with the wet area inside the cleaning area. Even there in the basin, just a little bigger, and that's about it, right? Now, if you have the option and a large countertop, why not increase the size of the wet area? You already know what the wet area is, but I'll just repeat it here and illustrate it for you. The wet area is that slightly lower area that stays there around our basin. Exactly, so that when I'm washing dishes, washing food, or doing anything there on top of my sink, on my countertop, that's the wet area. For example, it won't reach my cooktop, it won't reach any container or anything that's in the dry area, so it's important to have a slightly larger wet area. And maybe even on the right side, if you're left-handed and so on, to put the dish rack for those who don't have the dish rack built into the countertop. At your sink, you might have a built-in dish rack or a traditional one like I have at home. It's really nice to have a slightly larger wet area on your sink countertop. Again, I repeat, this is for those of you who have a large countertop and for those who have a smaller countertop, a short space there on your sink countertop. There's no way to do this. If you plan to renovate, build, or upgrade your kitchen, you'll be changing the countertop. Think about this. Having a slightly larger area, this wet area of your sink countertop. Now, I want to talk to you about the layout of your kitchen. You've probably heard that a triangle layout using the cooktop, sink, and refrigerator is very functional in our kitchen. But I want to bring this item here to explain it to you a little better. You've probably heard some professionals say that the perfect or ideal kitchen layout is to have a triangle shape, which is called the triangle layout. In a kitchen, you have the cooktop here, the refrigerator here, and your sink on this side here. In other words, cooktop, sink, refrigerator, they need to be in a triangle. But this is an idea that in our day-to-day design work, especially for those who live in apartments, doesn't work. There's no space, it doesn't fit, it doesn't work, the layout is tight, the space for our kitchen is small, so you won't be able to implement this. So, what do I say? This would be an interesting idea to use in a large kitchen. Now imagine me here and you. We have an apartment where our sink wall will have the cooktop, the sink goes a little further, dry area, refrigerator, so everything is on the same countertop. The ideal would be to have this layout in a triangle. It's to make your daily life easier, your everyday use in your kitchen. But if you don't have it, don't worry about what you hear out there. Oh, my kitchen didn't turn out well. Oh, my kitchen didn't turn out nice because it doesn't have the triangle layout. It doesn't look like what I saw on the internet and all that. Don't worry about it. Worry about using and making the most out of the useful space you have in your kitchen. And set aside this idea of a triangle layout in your kitchen for a bit. All right, use what you have. Try to improve and perfect the spaces you have. So if the cooktop is here, your wet area is right there, right after your sink. And the refrigerator is in the corner and it's serving you, it's working well. You can use your kitchen perfectly, okay? There's no problem at all. This idea of using a triangle layout here is only for when we have a lot of space and when we include this idea in the project for the client. And the client also has to agree, because if they don't, if you hire me and say like, oh, I didn't like this triangle idea, then why does the sink have to be here, the cooktop on this side and the refrigerator here? I'm going to keep spinning around here like a dizzy fool, right? No, okay? So do what works for you, setting aside this idea here that many times when we design a kitchen doesn't work. Tile only on the sink wall, which is really cool. What I've been using a lot in my projects is porcelain tile, right? Only on the wall where the sink goes, or maybe the cooktop. Pay attention, because this is also a way to save money in your kitchen, all right? In my current projects, I really make a point of giving tips and ideas to my clients. To put porcelain tile or stone and everything else only on the wall behind the sink, all right? Where the sink is and where the cooktop and stove are, for example. On that wall, we use the covering, whether it's porcelain tile, granite itself, anyway. But covering the entire kitchen with porcelain tile or stone, I don't really like that, okay? The idea is to make the space as clean and light as possible. Oh, Edipo, you're saying that. And what about using that paint on the other walls? Okay, kitchen, pay attention, think with me. In the kitchen, we usually have a lot of cabinets, we have a lot of cupboards, right? So that kind of eliminates the need to have tiles on those other walls, another thing. If I just told you that we should only have tiles on the sink wall, why put them on the other walls? Then comes the idea of using paint. Oh, but the paint will stain, the paint will get dirty. You can use a water-based epoxy paint, which is very good, easy to clean, and very resistant. And for the kitchen wall, there are only a few walls that will actually show because of the cabinets. The small can of epoxy paint you buy is cheap. You'll only need one can and you'll be able to paint the other walls too. So that's an idea, okay? It's a suggestion that I want to show and bring to you here. Having the covering, whether it's porcelain tile or some ceramic you like, only on the sink wall, leaving the other walls free. Cabinetry without a mirror, without glass. You know that overhead cabinet that stays there above the countertop of our sink? Imagine you have a mirror that has the glass and the mirror in this cabinetry. I want to bring you another perspective here. Now look, I brought this tip, this idea here, this item that I asked you about in previous videos. Okay guys, what do you think? Would you use the mirror on that overhead door? There in your cabinet, in your kitchen? I got 90% of messages here, responses to this video, saying they wouldn't. ED, it's hard to clean, it gets dirty very easily, any frying we do already splatters, already makes it very dirty, we have to keep cleaning it constantly because it shows the dirt more, right? So, 90% of the people who answered me said they wouldn't use a mirror on these overhead doors, on this cabinet of ours. 10% said no, I would use it. I like it, I enjoy it, so that's something I'd like to know from you. Would you use a mirror on your overhead doors in your kitchen? I wouldn't use it. Okay, I'll be honest with you, I'll say it again. If you hired me today to design a project for you, for your kitchen cabinetry, I wouldn't use doors with glass or mirrors on the upper part, and usually we don't use them on the lower part either. Even now on the upper part, I wouldn't put them either. Exactly because it's not an item, not a type of situation that's very functional in daily life. Imagine if I installed it a year later, you'd scold me because it gets dirty so easily. I could have just put the door in with the same woodwork. So, I'd like to hear your opinion here about this item. Whether you would use mirrors on your cabinet doors, in your kitchen, or not. Undermount sink. This here, guys, is a mandatory situation. For those of you who want to have a countertop, your sink countertop has to be functional. Undermount sink. This was also another question I asked you in previous videos. Which sinks would you use in your kitchen? Undermount. Below our countertop, our material leveled with the stone or a drop-in sink. The undermount sink got 95% answered yes, positive that they would use it. The drop-in sink was basically the one that came in last there. And the leveled one was also nice, but it has a price. It depends on the model. The sink that is leveled with the stone has to be the most expensive. All right, among these three here, undermount, drop-in, and leveled, okay? But think with me. Look, it's just us exchanging opinions here. I want to know from you. I'm talking to you here, and you answer me here in the comments. Imagine in your daily life, for you who have a drop-in sink, it's going to create that slight bump there, that little ridge on our countertop, and then pulling water into the sink is a bit of work, isn't it? It'll be harder for you to clean, a little bit of dirt will build up around the edge of your sink, the undermount sink or the flush-mounted sink. We don't have that problem. So what we're talking about here, I want you to understand. Okay, it's not that I'm telling you to never use an undermount sink. Even if you hired me to do the project, I wouldn't use it. I would use the flush-mounted or the undermount one. But it's not that you can't use it. If you like this model, there's no problem at all. But over time, you'll agree with me. You'll have a little more work to clean and maintain your countertop water filter, that traditional filter we usually have. It should be on the wall and not on top of your sink countertop. There's a water filter in your kitchen, which is natural. It's normal for us to have one. I have a water filter at home. Other people sometimes have a filter too. On the faucet itself, there are a lot of people who like it and a lot of people who don't. I'd like to know your opinion. Are you one of those who prefer the regular filter, the traditional one that we always have, or a filter on the faucet? I'd like to hear your opinion, but what's the tip I want to bring to you here? Look, having a water filter in your kitchen, natural. But in my opinion and in my projects, I always try to put it on the wall, never on top of the countertop. Okay, only if there's no other way, only if there isn't. Like, if you're going to lose a lot of space and your overhead cabinet space is already limited, then, okay, you can leave it on top of your countertop. But other than that, always on the wall, keep your countertop free. It's easy for you to clean, do anything on your countertop and have space in your cabinet. There are situations where you can even make a little carpentry box to hide the hose and the outlet behind it. Okay? I've done this before. There was a project where I did it like that. So, my tip and my idea for you is, if you're going to install the filter, if you're renovating your kitchen, then think carefully. Put the filter, the water point, and the outlet there to connect it on the wall, never on the countertop. Now, if you already had your kitchen, if you bought an apartment or a house and you're not going to renovate it now, there's no way, you have to leave it on the countertop. But even so, you can still put the anchors there and mount the filter on the wall to keep your countertop free. A really cool and very functional tip for your kitchen trash can on your sink countertop and in your kitchen. Would you use it? Personally, I don't like it and wouldn't recommend it. In a new project, many clients, when we're designing, ask me about it. Ed, don't forget my little trash can, okay? Should the trash can be in the wet area or the dry area of the countertop? Pay attention to this tip I'm going to give you now about the little trash can. When you're going to put a trash can on your countertop by the sink, okay, no problem. In my opinion, it should be in the dry area, never in the wet area. That's my opinion. If there's no way, if you really have to put it in the wet area, that's fine. But if the project allows it, always put the little trash can in the dry area. But I'm one of those people who doesn't like having the trash can on the countertop, okay? That's just my personal opinion. If you hired me to do a project, I would tell you, look, let's not put the trash can here on our countertop, okay? First, we can't have a big trash can on our countertop. Man, it would have to be a really small one, okay? Second, I don't think it's very hygienic to have a trash can on the countertop. I'm not criticizing you. About the hair in your sink, I'm not criticizing you. I'm just saying that in a project I wouldn't put it there. I prefer to use a countertop trash can. For example, in two situations, the traditional floor trash can that you step on to open, or a built-in trash can inside the cabinet, which is also very common now. But on top of my countertop, I don't like it. But I'd like to hear your opinion. Would you put a trash can on the countertop, on your sink, on your new countertop that you're gonna make? Answer. For me, it's like, yes, I would use the trash can on my countertop. It's like, I don't agree with you. It has to be that traditional trash can, either on the floor or inside the cabinet. 220 volt outlet. You have no idea how much of a difference it makes to have a 220 volt outlet in your kitchen. For us who live here in São Paulo, this video, I live here in São Paulo. Here we have voltage 127 and 220 volts. But there are places here in Brazil where there's only 220, and then all the appliances are 220. In those regions, it's more common in the northeast, also in the south. Now here in the southeast, it's very common for us to use it. Volt is used to make all the power outlets in our house, especially when we're setting them up in the kitchen. Think about how important it is to have at least one 220 volt outlet there on your kitchen counter, even if all your kitchen appliances are 127 volts. But at least leave one outlet, you know, that little outlet, even if it's for the fridge in the corner hidden away and all, but at least leave one 220 volt outlet in your kitchen with a general purpose outlet there and all. So you have that option, because at some point you might need to use an appliance or equipment that only works on 220 volts. And so on. A powerful appliance, something like that. You already have it, okay? So sometimes, to make it easier, I didn't leave any 220 volt outlets. Here, to make the change, the modification will cause a little bit of inconvenience. It might even require some braking. So if you're already renovating your kitchen, already working on the electrical part, just ask the electrician, hey, leave a 220 volt outlet here for me, because I might use it, right? So that's a really good tip for you guys too. Mata porcelain tile on the floor? Okay, I'm in favor of using porcelain material, including matte porcelain, on our kitchen floor. I've already received several questions from you guys asking, like, do you recommend using vinyl flooring in my kitchen? It's like, do you recommend using polished flooring, porcelain, or some kind of polished ceramic on our kitchen floor? I don't think so, right? I wouldn't recommend you use vinyl flooring in the kitchen or polished porcelain tile in the kitchen. I'm one of those people who like to design and recommend the material to the client. Always porcelain tile for flooring, okay? Always porcelain. And in the kitchen and bathrooms, also taking this opportunity, and also in the laundry room. Satin finish. For those who can't tell the difference between polished and satin, it's simple. Polished is shiny, satin isn't, it's matte. What does that bring? Does it make a difference in your day? In terms of safety, the satin finish gives you a little more grip, you feel safer walking on it. It won't be as slippery, to put it more clearly. When polished gets wet, it becomes more slippery, that's natural. Let's leave the polished finish for walls, porcelain tiles on the wall, but for the floor, porcelain tiles including satin finish. Functional lighting. In neutral white, you need to have centralized lighting with a main fixture using white. Neutral. Do you want to use warm white, the warm white lighting, which is that more yellowish one for your kitchen? There's no problem at all. You can use it if you like and want to use it. There's no problem at all. Go ahead and use it. In the current projects I do, I always recommend my clients to use neutral white on the kitchen ceiling. Okay, to make the environment brighter and more pleasant for daily use, and especially in the kitchen. Guys, we need to have a main functional lighting, whether it's those recessed fixtures, the longer ones, or LED profiles. But it has to light up, it has to be functional lighting. I walk into my kitchen, I press the switch, and it has to be well lit. Yours is a place where you need to pay attention. You'll be cooking food all the time, cutting food, cleaning. So you need to have functional lighting. And my tip for you is to use a neutral white switch, okay? And a good light fixture with good strong lighting capacity. The one you turn on is the one you'll use daily. You can have spotlights, profiles, or pendant lights above your kitchen counter. There's no problem with any of them. You can have various types of lighting, but the main lighting, that big fixture that's going to light up the space, that one you can't go without. And finally, guys, the faucet, I want to talk to you now about two models, okay? I'm in favor of that cleaner looking faucet, but there are a lot of people who like the gourmet faucet. Before we talk about this last item here, specifically the faucet, some of the items we've seen in this video, I want to share the purchase links for them down below in the description. If you, for example, were interested in the built-in sink, I'll leave the link for it here in the description. The LED, that LED strip you can put under the cabinet, I'll also leave the link for the small trash can, for example, the built-in one or the floor one. I'll leave those for you as well. And now the faucet, I want to talk to you about it. The faucet, I'm an advocate, and those of you who follow me here know of using a cleaner, more minimalist faucet, and it should even have a filter in it. Obviously, it's a higher added value, it costs more. Other people have already replied to me here saying they like the gourmet faucet, right? There's no problem with that. In my current project, I would recommend you use the smoother, cleaner, simpler faucet. I'll even leave some links to a few models for you down below in the video description, okay? Now, there's nothing wrong with using a gourmet faucet if you like it, think it's cool, or find it functional. There's no problem at all. But I prefer using a simpler faucet for one main reason. There are some advantages and disadvantages of the gourmet faucet. Okay, among them, the advantage that I see in the gourmet faucet, it has a good reach, it has a little sprayer and all, it works really well. The downside is that it's very big. Usually a gourmet faucet is very big, it stands out a lot. There in your decor, there are materials, if you don't buy a good material, it will rust easily, right? It will. Because it's a big faucet, if you install it directly on the sink, it will need maintenance sooner because it shakes a lot due to its size. Is that right? So a cleaner, lighter, simpler, smoother faucet, I think it will look much better compared to another type of faucet. Gumia, if you have one or want to install one, that's fine. Alright guys, so here we have, look, 15 tips actually, it's not even 10, it's 15 actually, that you can have there in your kitchen. Practical tips that will make your kitchen work well in your daily routine for your use there in your kitchen. Some inexpensive items that you can save money on by buying, and some of them here for you to already use during the setup phase of your kitchen. Alright? So, I hope you enjoyed and liked this day. If you did and you're not yet subscribed to our channel, go ahead and subscribe. Alright? Links to some products I mentioned here are in our next video. Take care.